Hi, welcome to the 8th episode of Orthodontic Matters. A lot of people asked about retainers and retention. I know it's a common question that comes up, so I thought we could cover that today. Um, well, it really depends on a lot of things uh, in orthodontic treatment, what kind of retentions we're going to use. To start with, if it was a straight wire case, we usually do what's called progressive D-band, which is we take the molar bands off first to eliminate the band spaces. And then we do a D-band after the band spaces have been eliminated. And a lot of times, you could take a scan of the arch with the brackets and have a hollow retainers made by a lab before the braces get taken off, or the traditional way is you could just take an alginate with the braces still on, so when the patient comes back you already have a hollow retainer. But nevertheless, I just wanted to mention the progressive D-band, which eliminates the problem that a lot of times you see where patients are packing food on the molars because the band space is still there after the debanding. And once everything's done, and let's say the patient has like a clear overlay retainer, that would maintain that band space where the patient is packing food, and now a lot of times they're hurting because of the packing food, and it's a hygiene issue, then they get cavities. So it's very important to eliminate those band spaces. So we do that by what I mentioned is the progressive D-band. If the patient had 7 bands, we take off the bands off of the 6 and have like an elastic chain going to the 7s, close the spaces, and then we take off the 7s and allow the teeth to drift, and then we take the braces off. So to go back to the topic of the retainers, so once the band spaces have been eliminated, if it's a straight wire case, now it comes down to deciding what kind of retainers we're going to use. Now the traditional retainer is the hollow retainer. Here's an example of it. It's just acrylic with the wire. It's a great retainer. If you've done like a maxillary expansion, and you're trying to still maintain that expansion and prevent the relapse. So the hollow retainers hold maxillary expansion quite well. What they don't do so well is holding the teeth, because of the wires in front of the teeth. It will still allow the teeth to shift, and a lot of times the patients are not super easy on those retainers, and then the wire will bend and the teeth can shift pretty easily. But the other nice thing about the hollow retainers is it does allow the teeth to settle some. If let's say the patient had to deband early, or there's still some settling that needs to happen in some cases. So the hollow retainer is good for that. The other common retainer now is the clear overlay. You can make those in your practice out of the clear vacuum plastic with the Mini-Star or BioStar machines. There's many different thickness of plastics that you can use. The problem with them is they break really easily. A lot of times when you trim them and you make a nice scalpel between the teeth, when the patients take them out on one side, they tend to split in the middle. And the plastic, no matter what kind of plastic you buy, they tend to be on a weaker side. Now they do hold the teeth really nicely, but you do have the problem of the lab work, or you can have the lab fabricated, but nevertheless they tend to be a little bit on a weaker side. They just kind of break easily. Now we do use a Line-Tex retainer, which is really good, the Vivera retainers, and those hold the teeth really well, and the plastic is really strong. We tried all the plastics on the market, and we just can't seem to make a retainer like the Vivera retainers, and they do come in a set of 4. So a lot of times if you give a patient like a hollow retainer, we also give them a Vivera that comes in a set of 4, or they can purchase it at cost. We just want them to have a hollow retainer as well as a clear overlay retainer that's really strong and good quality. And those come in a set of 4 for, I can't remember the cost, it's around $300, $290 maybe, somewhere around there. And you get 4 upper and lower sets. And those clear overlay retainers and the Vivera retainers will hold the teeth really nicely. One thing that they would not allow to do is settling of the teeth, as well as if you have band spaces and you didn't do the progressive D-band and you did not eliminate the the band spaces, they will maintain those band spaces and a food trap with it. So they do have some problems. Also, if a patient has still erupting lower sevens, depending how you make the retainer, it will hold the lower sevens and it will prevent them from erupting. Unless you trim them back and then you make a new one after that. So you do have to look at if it's a patient who still have lower sevens or upper sevens or both still erupting. So that's a good option too. As I said, I highly recommend. In our practice, we just use the Vivera retainers quite a bit. They just tend to be a lot stronger than what we can make, and we tried making them. And if we don't do a hollow retainer, we give a patient a clear overlay retainer that we make in the office. But as I said, they don't tend to hold up as well as the one that we get from Orthodontic. And there is a good now there's a newer hollow retainer which is called a clear bow. Here's an example of a clear bow, which I really like because it has the benefits of the hollow retainer, which is it's able to hold the expansion quite well. Like if you use the rapid palatal expander, the acrylic part of this clear bow retainer will hold the expansion quite well. And also the clear plastic part that interdigitates between the teeth holds the anterior teeth really well. So it's a good mixture of the clear overlay as well as the hollow retainer. And it does allow some settling of the teeth, and it holds the anterior teeth really well, and it holds the expansion. I really like that retainer. It's not cheap to have it made, but it's a really good high quality retainer. I strongly recommend you try that. Now, I see a lot of practitioners use what's called a fixed retainer, and a lot of you call it a permanent retainer. I would never call it a permanent retainer. The problem with calling it a permanent retainer, when you have that wire just bonded to the back of the anterior teeth, usually canine to canine or lateral to lateral, some of you call it a permanent retainer. Well, I would highly recommend not calling it a permanent retainer, because if you call it a permanent retainer, the patient thinks it should be there forever. And if it comes off or bends or something happens, well, you call it a permanent retainer, so it's your problem that it came off. I would call it a fixed retainer, and it's fixed until it becomes unfixed. So now that it's unfixed, it's a patient's problem, and it really is their problem. It's a maintenance issue. In my opinion, there's only one reason to use a fixed retainer, not a permanent, a fixed retainer. And the case is when you started with some spaces. For example, a patient had some diastema and you closed that with orthodontically. Those tend to come back, especially if you have a frenum. Even if you just did the frenum, sometimes the gingival tissue just want to kind of bring back the diastema. So if you started with space, especially between the upper front teeth, I strongly recommend doing a fixed retainer, at least 2 to 2, maybe 3 to 3. Now, sometimes if the patient is occluding on it or has a deep bite, still a little bit of deep bite, and they're biting on it, then that fixed retainer is not going to be fixed very long. But maybe you can just use it from 2 to 2, just the lateral to lateral, and bond it on that. We have usually Great Lakes Orthodontics makes our fixed retainers, and we use just Unisem to bond it. And it comes with a nice tray. They're quite hard to make in a lab, and it's kind of tedious. So if you want a really nice one, I recommend you have a lab make one, and then you try it. It's embedded in a clear plastic, and you put well, we use Unisem to cement it because we want it on there, for as long as it's possible. And we edge the teeth, and we put the Unisem in the valves in a carrying case. Now, and once you put it on, you have to polish it because it's still a little bit rough. And then I usually have a patient sign a release form that they understand that it's their responsibility to maintain the fixed retainer. If it comes off, it's their problem. There's a cost associated with taking it off or putting it back on, but you're not maintaining it for free. As I said, if you call it a permanent retainer, in a patient's mind, you're going to maintain that retainer for life, forever, permanently. So, as I said, it's a fixed retainer. Once it comes off or something happens to it, it is the patient's responsibility. Also, the other problem with the fixed retainer is hygiene issues. The patients don't floss; they already don't floss, so now you give them even more reason not to floss, and you bond their teeth together, and then you have to use a floss threader, which if patients don't floss with a regular floss, they really don't want to floss with a floss threader. And some patients got pretty tight contacts, and the threaded floss gets stuck, and they just hate it, and they pull it off. Or depending what kind of wire it's made out of, the wire can actually bend, and now they're acting like braces, because now you got this wire that's cemented to the teeth, but it's not, now it has a kink or a bend, and now they're moving the teeth. So there are some issues with the hygiene, as well as maintenance issues, a lot of issues with these fixed retainers. And as I said, once you put on 200-300 of these fixed retainers, now you have to maintain those things, and a lot of appointments just maintaining these fixed retainers. So I only use them if there was a diastema in the front when we started, and I like to keep them on for as long as they stay on, and once they come off, they're off. And if patients get a fixed retainer, they always get a full arch retainer. Fixed retainers will only hold, what the teeth that they bonded on, but what's holding the rest of them. So if a patient gets a fixed retainer, they still get a hollow retainer, or clear bow, or a clear overlay, or Vivera retainer. Which brings up another problem. If a fixed retainer comes loose or something happens, now you have to repair it. If the patient had a clear overlay retainer over that, and now you repair it, the clear overlay retainer may not fit, and oftentimes it won't fit, because remember, that was made to fit that fixed retainer, and now you changed what's underneath it, so now your clear overlay retainer doesn't fit. So at that point, I just like to take it off, and then patient just has the clear overlay retainer. And as I said, only in diastema start cases. So that was the clear retainer, and so I hope that kind of answered a lot of your questions. I suggest the best method of these retainers is really, like I said, the progressive deband, eliminate the band spaces, and then take an impression or scan the arch with the braces still on. Have the lab make like a hollow retainer. Clear bow, you have to have everything off of the teeth, so you have a nice clean surface. But I would have a lab made maybe a holly, and you could make like a clear overlay in your office. But if you do it that way, you take an impression with the braces still on, you have a retainer when the patient comes in, and you just take the braces off, and then you have a retainer right away. And then if you want a nice, like a clear bow retainer, then you could take an impression for that. You have a nice clean teeth, and the lab will be able to make a retainer pretty easily. If you did Invisalign or clear, correct, or any of the clear aligner cases, then really you can use any of these retainers still. You probably, if you did clear aligners, you probably didn't do an expansion, so you may not need a holly or a clear bow. You could just use a clear overlay retainer. But as I said, the problem with them, what I see a lot, is that they break, they crack right in the middle of it, because the patient takes them out by lifting up on one side, and the clear plastic tend to get a lot of stress in the middle, and then they split. So if you don't want your patient's teeth to shift, especially at the beginning, I would suggest getting them multiple sets, which is why, again, I really like the Align Techs, and because they all have 4 sets, and so the patient just goes and they'll leave you alone until they go through all 4 sets. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video, and we are going to start having regular webinars. If you'd like to attend our regular webinars, please visit our website, NagyOrthodonticAcademy.com. Visit our Facebook page, and we'll post the dates and the times for these webinars. And if you'd like to enroll, they're going to be anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour, and it's going to be a live webinar where you can ask questions. We'll have a topic, and we are ADA certified, so you can get CE credit for taking our live webinar. And I'll encourage everybody to send questions before the webinar so we can discuss it during the live webinar. And if you have any questions in the meantime, welcome to email me or call me. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe to our channel and just keep in touch. Good luck with all your cases. Bye.